nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell here with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we are back with some good news. We're going to recap the Ravens-Washington football team game, give our reactions, ask our questions and get our answers to them. I'll give you guys some stats and insight. But before we do, make sure to take a second, hit the subscribe button to support the channel. Go ahead and check out our Patreon if you're interested in interacting with us more. Leave your comments. We love to interact with you, and we try and get back to as many as we can. And go ahead and give us a like. But without talking about that more, let's jump right into the recap. Glenn, what do you got for some general stats for us on this game?
All right, so the Ravens win 31-17 over the football team in a pretty close statistical matchup. They the Ravens put up 350 total yards to Washington's 343. Washington had 274 through the air to Baltimore's 206. And then Washington had just 69 rushing yards to Baltimore's 144. So still pretty close total yards. Did get 2 turnovers out of us from Washington was we got 1 out of them thanks to Marlon Humphrey. Time of possession also extremely even, 30 minutes and 38 seconds for Washington to 29 minutes and 22 seconds for Baltimore. So kind of unique in the sense that looked like a pretty, if you look at the final score, it's a pretty handled, they won pretty handily. But to lose the time of possession battle is kind of surprising.
Yeah, no, and yes and no. Yes, when you look at the stat sheet and who the teams are, right?
Yeah.
But no, when you watch how they dominated us in the screen game. I mean,
screens once again.
They're chipping away. They definitely saw that Kansas City game and took notes. Not that they could execute at the same level, but Antonio Gibson is no joke.
Well, the 2 guys let me just say this, the 2 guys that we pointed out before the game were the 2 that clearly were the focal point of their offense, and they hurt us. I mean, scary Terry McLaurin, he put up 10 catches for 118 yards on 14 targets, so a guy they really wanted to get the ball. And then the other guy that we really liked coming out of college, Antonio Gibson, he had 13 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown, but also through the air added 4 catches for 82 yards. You mentioned that screen game. Yeah, teams are really employing that screen game against our man defense, and it's been in big moments, and they use it to pick up first downs and chunk plays, and that's been a problem. But the good news is, like I said, they came away with a 14-point win. So who played well on offense for us, Jimbo?
Yeah, I tell you what, this was an interesting one for me. Before I get into individual players, I just want to point out a couple cool insights and kind of intermingle those topics here. But the cool thing here, it's funny because the Ravens have tied the Browns, which is weird. The Browns franchise for the 4th most wins by any franchise in its first 25 years in existence. Kind of weird because you wouldn't think about the Browns as a successful organization. But in round 1 of the Browns, before they became the Ravens, they were relatively successful, it looks like. Yeah. A couple of things here. Lamar Jackson becomes the fastest player and is the only player in NFL history with 5,000 passing yards, well, along with Cam Newton, and 2,000 rushing yards in their first 3 career seasons. And that's pretty impressive considering the first year he pretty much sat the bench except the last 7 games. So, I mean, that's crazy. And then also, I mean, I think any of you that are Ravens fans already knew this, but that run yesterday by Lamar was the longest rushing touchdown of his career, that 50-yard run, which, he took off like a bullet, which is pretty awesome. And then the other thing I want to note here, which is important, you talked about this earlier, the Ravens defense has 1+ takeaway in 17 consecutive games, and that is the longest active streak in the NFL. So just some pretty cool insights there I think are awesome as far as success. Now, I would say that who knows how sustainable it's going to be, but obviously we had the longest streak in the NFL. So sustainability right now is not a question as far as those turnovers go, but some players that I want to point out, and some comments that I want to make around them is I want to start with the rush game. Of course, Lamar Jackson led the team in rushing. Only 53 yards, but what I want to point out is Gus Edwards had the most carries in this game for our running backs. He had 9 carries, 38 yards, averaging 4.2 a carry. And then Mark, of course, had the touchdown at 8 carries. So and Dobbins only had 5. So it seems like they heard us. They got Gus in the game early, relatively often, right?
Yep.
So I thought that that was important. And then in the passing game, it was really nice to see Andrews bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
He had 3 receptions, but 2 of those were and he was 3 receptions on 3 targets, 2 touchdowns, and 57 yards. But in addition to that, Marquise Brown was nice to see him because I feel like that last game he got kind of pushed around.
Yep.
Had 4 receptions for 86 yards on 8 targets. So I'd like to see that percentage of a completion go up between,
Mm-hmm.
8 targets, only 4 catches. But
Yeah, they just missed on a couple deep balls.
yeah.
They could
And
have
it
really
just
broke the game open.
if that was surprising because there was I think that the one where it was a post, I mean, it was just a really long post route and Lamar overthrew him, man.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be hard to overthrow Marquise Brown.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get a little more air under the ball. Maybe not quite to the Joe Flacco level because he could throw
Right.
the ball out of the stadium into the clouds and then it would return back down. But I'd like to see him Lamar get a little more air under, give Hollywood a little bit more, I guess, leniency to get under the ball. But yeah, it's good to know that they're still taking those shots because I think
Yeah.
that was a frustration that they weren't even attempting the deep ball last year a lot of games. So it's good to know that they're at least taking the shots. But yeah, you want to see that completion rate go a little higher than 50%, which is what it was for this game. But I want to get into some of my notes that I was taking down during the game because
Yeah.
first and foremost, it's good to see Judon get into the sack mix. He gets
Yes.
his not just his first one, but he gets his first 2. Now I'll say this: the first one was about as easy as you could ask for, completely unblocked. I don't know what happened there, if that was the intention, they were supposed to get the ball out early, or if that was a completely blown blocking assignment. But either way, Judon capitalized, made the most of it, got the sack, got Haskins to the ground. So that was nice to see. What'd you think about your boy Judon?
Yeah, I was happy that I called that one out. If you guys watched our preview show, my defensive breakout player of the game or big game performer was Matthew Judon, and honestly, I wasn't feeling super confident about
It was
picking
more
him,
of a
but
hope than a prediction.
yeah, it was like a slight hunch, but
Yeah.
rolling with your gut there. So yeah, I was happy to see it. I mean, this game overall, and I want to keep going through these notes here, but this game overall was just a weird one because I still have as many questions about the Ravens. I didn't, as I did after the Kansas City game. I didn't get a ton of clarity. One, because the level, I mean, look, this isn't a pushover team,
Right.
100%, but to a certain extent, if we just went down there, showed up, executed at a certain level, we were going to win this game based on our rosters. So yeah, I mean, while I was happy to see Judon do it, we need him to show up in Kansas City. We need him to show up
Yeah.
against the Steelers. We need him to show up against, these big names. So I don't know. I hate this, but every single performance for me came with a caveat that well, it was the Washington football team. They can't even pick a name, much less field a winning team. Come on.
Well, yeah, but you still got to win, and we've seen the Ravens lose these types of games in the past.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
not
true.
under Lamar, but certainly before him, we saw us. There was that time where it seemed like the Ravens would play down to the level of their competition a lot of times. So it's still nice to see they did what they were supposed to do. They beat a bad team by 14. And man, it's crazy to me though. You look at that NFC East, what a dumpster fire. I mean, it's absolutely embarrassing that their leader in their division is 1-2-1. The Philadelphia Eagles, pathetic. Through 4 games, their leader in their division has 1 win. No, not one team can muster 2 wins out of 4 games in that entire pathetic division. I fully anticipate that the winner of that division will be coming out at 7-9, and that's just embarrassing. But
And how much would the Falcons love to be in the NFC East?
oh my goodness, you're always in it. I mean,
Right.
if you're the Cowboys, you're feeling really down, but not really. I mean, yeah, you just got your doors blown off by the Browns. You gave up 49 points to the Browns, but you're still right in it. You're still second place in the division. I mean, you're half a game out. You're a tie away from being tied. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, man, it's just unbelievable how bad that division is. It's just crazy to me. But anyway, I wanted to get on to another that throw that set up the touchdown by Mark Ingram, the 1-yard touchdown. That Lamar threw across his body, rolling out to the right, threw it across his body to the left, hit Hollywood, and Hollywood almost was able to punch it in, but got tackled just shy. Heck of a throw, heck of a catch by Hollywood in some traffic. So that was nice to see them because that was a big pivotal moment in that game. And I think that gained them just a little bit of separation, some confidence.
Yeah, I thought that's it's funny to me because I feel like he made some nice throws on the run. Of course, that touchdown pass to Mark Andrews was rolling out to his left, made that throw. But it's funny. Lamar has become a victim of his own success, right? Where like if you don't actually appreciate what he's doing, you're like, well, it's just Lamar being Lamar. No, like take a second to realize how good you have to be to do that. So I kind of fell into that trap yesterday when I saw that play. I was like, well, I've seen it before. You know what I mean? Like, good job, Lamar. Like,
right. But if nobody'd seen Lamar before and they just turned that on, they'd be like, wow, that was a really
yeah,
nice, tough play by a quarterback. But yeah,
absolutely.
we're pretty used to it here in Baltimore. But also a missed field goal attempt by Washington kept us up.
I was surprised they went for that. Were you?
It was a 54-yarder, I
54
believe.
yarder. Yeah.
It's hard for me to judge that because in Baltimore, that's a chip shot for Justin Tucker. We are so spoiled. I mean, every game he gets it more perfect when he makes another field goal. It's right down the middle. So spoiled here in Baltimore. He's just that whole group is just incredible. But then also my next note is Marlon forces yet another turnover as he rips the ball away from McKissick. I mean, the guy is just a phenomenal football player. It's good to see him, making his presence felt in this game, shortly after the signing that big deal. But just proving he's a football player. He finds a way to get the ball from the other team. And yeah, this is just another example of it.
Yeah, and he was all over the field yesterday as well, making a lot of tackles, making a lot of open field tackles. So one of the things I wanted to mention about that is that in the post-game presser, they asked Marlon about these, punch outs, and his Twitter handle used to be Fruit Punch. And so are they going to call that? Yeah, so it was already verified, so he had to like change his Twitter name or whatever. So they were asking, are we going to call this the Fruit Punch every time it's a punch out, or what are we going to call it? So I'm counting on 410 Sports Talk fans and viewers, all of you out there who watch the show. What are we going to call this? The punch out every single time? Is it going to be a?
Well, this was more of a wrestle.
It was.
He ripped it out, but he does go for that punch a lot. Yeah.
So let us know what you guys think. I mean, it's become quite an occurrence, and I don't see it going anywhere, considering that if you took the diameter of every cornerback's arms in the league, I'm pretty sure, or the circumference, or whatever mathematical term it is, I think Marlon's right there. He's a pretty beefy corner.
And he's just the way he plays. He's just not just strong for no reason. He plays with every bit of that physicality.
Yeah, but so let us know what you guys think on that. I'd like to know what catchphrase we can use for that from there on. But of course, we talked about this. Lamar had the 50-yard run. He stiff arms the defender. I like how he kind of put the ball out there, and then he saw the defender coming at the end, and he was like, "All right, well, let me get shed this guy real quick." But yeah, the stiff arm was nice. The breakaway speed was nice, and Glenn, I thought it was interesting because before the show started, we kind of talked about this, and this was a conversation I was having yesterday. And I want to say this without getting blown up. I'm not overreacting. I don't think that you're overreacting here, but it's just interesting because I think this year Lamar's speed has seemed less apparent. Not that it's not there, but there have just been some plays where he's not getting the same separation as he was last year. I'm not saying he's slower or anything like that. It could be a matter of guys just being a little more prepared for Lamar, expecting him a little more, and just going into that week, taking a little bit of angles, having a little bit more discipline, things.
Yeah, just showing more respect to Lamar. I think that's
right.
That's the key, because I think what you're trying to say is he just doesn't look so much faster than every other player on the field like he did last year.
Still faster, but not, like you're saying, last year
it looked like everyone is in slow motion and he was in fast forward. That's what it looked like last year.
The one kid that had gone through puberty in 9th grade and no one else had yet.
Right. And it's hard because we just got done bringing up his longest touchdown run of his career at 50 yards, where he looked very fast. But I think you're right. I think the point is that on third down, on 3rd and 9 last year, it's like he would just type in the cheat code, take off, and just be so much faster than everyone. It was an easy 12-yard gain. He'd scamper out of bounds. This year, it looks more challenging. They're showing more respect. They're taking angles where they're just anticipating his speed better, and they're not letting him get that corner where before they would underestimate it and he'd get the edge and turn it into a big gain. So it's clear the defenders are showing him more respect than last year in terms of his speed. and they're able to corral him better, but certainly not on that run. And nice to see him get that ball back in as he was just getting ready to celebrate, and he pulled it back in right in the nick of time. So beautiful run, awesome play.
Yeah, absolutely. I was glad to see, I was glad to see his speed on display once again.
Yes,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? Just to
Because
see
he said he wanted more long runs this year. He said he would get them. He
right,
got one there.
right, absolutely.
So also Antonio Gibson, man, we mentioned him a little bit early on. We told you about his stats. The dude can play, man. He can flat out play. He looked like a real NFL running back. We weren't sure when he was coming out exactly how teams would use him because he's so versatile. He can play receiver. He can play running back. He's a great returner. But man, they obviously envision him as a heck of a running back, and they're using him. And he right now, to me, he looks like a 3-down type of player going forward, and a guy that the NFC East gonna have to deal with for a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy because we went from Edwards-Helaire to watching Antonio Gibson. I'm not saying that he's Edwards-Helaire, but I would be hard pressed to say that he couldn't do the same thing in that Kansas City system as Edwards-Helaire. I mean, the full gamut. He can do everything, right?
Yes.
He can run it up the middle. He can obviously use space well. He dominates in the screen game, and so his abilities as a receiver, he can catch the tough passes, and his abilities as a running back really mesh well together. Rare combination. But I want to focus on this here and ask you a question. This is where I was saying that I still have the same questions that I did before, post Kansas City game. Before this game, it's still the same question. The Kansas City Chiefs, they gained 163 yards on running back passes against us. 163 yards. Okay. In that game, in the first half, Gibson had 3 receptions for 73 yards in the first half. What's the answer here? First of all, what's going on? How do we fix it? I mean, as far as stopping the screen game, because this is going to be a thing over and over again. Obviously, they watch the Kansas City tape. Every team's going to keep doing it until we stop it.
Yeah.
How do we stop it?
Well, it's not just the screen. I mean, yeah, they did some nice work there, but it's also just getting the ball to the running back at key moments. And a lot of that, unfortunately, is just schematically. The thing that the Ravens like to do is bring man blitzes and to come after you, especially on third down. Well, if the quarterback's able to recognize that, which it's not hard to predict what we're going to do when you consider we blitz more than anyone in the league, and it's not that close. So when they anticipate that screen, that blitz, and they can tell where it's coming from, if the offensive line's able to pick it up and they can sneak a running back out of the backfield through that screen, typically the defender who's in charge of guarding him it's gonna have a tough time getting to him because there's a lot going on. There's people bumping into him. So all they need is this little bit of separation to get the ball to the running back. And even if the defender who's responsible for him is close, I mean, a guy like Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they don't need a lot of room. So you get him the ball, boom, he scampers for 12 yards and a first down. So I just think the key is it's going to be helped by Wink Martindale making the correct calls at the correct times. It seems like they keep catching us in these and they just hit us with a man beater. They just easily, they see the blitz coming, they dump it down to the running back who is, being trailed by a man defender, but he's just not close enough because typically they're not as fast, they're not fast enough. So it's got to be play design. You got to get some more eyes on the running back because you're right. It's getting too easy. Too many times we just see him snap the ball, take 1 second, dump it down to the running back, first down on a huge third down situation.
Yeah, 3rd and 11 when he had that, I think it was like a 60-yard run, short pass on a dump down, like you're saying, for, he turned into, I think it was either 40 or 60 yards. I can't remember the exact number, but do you think that they envisioned Queen being able to this would be a lot to ask, but based on his speed, to be able to not shut it down, but mitigate a lot of that on his own and win the majority of those one-on-one battles. I can understand if that's the case. Man, I don't know how many linebackers in today's NFL can stop a running back in open field, one-on-one situation. That's just a lot to ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's also a lot to ask for a rookie. Yeah,
right.
when you consider it's not just that it's not just always they just snap the ball and then hit the running back, and it's not that easy. You think, Queen should just run over and grab. but a lot of times there's action going on. There's play
Yeah.
action off of it. There's a fake wide receiver screen off of it. There's a drag running in the face of Queen, which is tempting. It's so there's usually not just one thing. There's all this going on for a middle linebacker who's a rookie who only played 1 year of LSU ball. And he's seeing all this going on in front of him, and he's trying to analyze all this and make the correct decision and play fast and play as a Raven. So it's just a lot to absorb and digest, and then also make the correct call and then execute all in this quick 1 second window. So I think, but what I found interesting in that game, I saw plays where Board, Malik Harrison, and Patrick Queen were all on the field at once, which is not typical. Not what you see a lot out of the Ravens, where you'll see 3 linebackers on the field like that. So that was interesting and kind of cool to see that they trusted them enough because they were in coverage in that play.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool. But I don't want to stay too long on that. But yeah, it is getting to be a point where we got to start figuring out a way to shut down these throws to the running backs because they're killing us.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Board is playing himself into playing time where he can't be left off the field. Is what I think is happening. I think he's developing as a player, and I think that they can't keep leaving him off the field. That play that he made on 3rd down to push that receiver back was a big play because at that point in the game, I think it was 14-7. Either way, it was a 1 possession game.
Yeah, it was 14-7. Yep.
Yeah, and so that was a huge play. But that 3rd and 11, I mean, killed me, man. Even though we won that game, that to me is what stays in my head. That 3rd and 11 where they convert on a quick dump down to the.
And we need to see more of that from our offense because let's be honest, what teams are doing to beat the Ravens is they're getting up on them, they're pressing their receivers, they're beating up at the line, they're sending the house, and Greg Roman's offense. And it might be a combination of also Lamar's play style, but for whatever reason, we just don't throw the ball a lot to the running backs. We don't.
Right.
We certainly don't design it, and it doesn't. We got used to seeing a lot of checkdowns from Joe Flacco. That don't happen here in Baltimore. Now Lamar's here. He just does
it. Are we calling for more checkdowns?
Well, not more checkdowns, but more designed blitz beaters to the running back. Man, like that kills. It slows down that pass rush. You can't just send a 6-man blitz, a 5-6-man blitz when you know that they could just sneak the running back out of the backfield and dump it over your head for an easy throw and catch that turns into a big gain. So,
and we know JK has all the ability to do it. I mean, JK, Mark, Gus, but JK
has he's caught every single target thrown his way since he's been in the NFL.
Underrated as a catcher. Just saying.
100%.
Yeah. So JK, I think would be great in the open field.
Absolutely.
I mean, just a really, tough guy to bring down. So I totally agree with you.
But moving on from that, the fake punt, man, Sam Cook, 7 for 7 in his career. The guy is just a sensational athlete. And yeah, I mean, another perfect throw, a great play by Boykin to sell the punt, but also get just enough separation and make the catch at the end. Excellent play and a big moment that gained, as Harbs mentioned after the game, gained them that separation that every team, but certainly the Ravens, they want to create a gap that way they can start wearing you down the second half, and that really set up a beautiful throw by Lamar to Mark Andrews across his body, running to the left, and he hits just a beautiful throw to Andrews right on the sideline in the end zone for a 21-7 lead.
Yeah, you could tell the way Andrews spiked that ball. He's taking some frustration out on it. He was really it's funny because I feel like his short tenure in the league, he's been spoiled to a sense where like he knows when he works hard on a route, he's probably going to get the ball. And there was a little bit of that and obviously in the last game and then, a little bit of this game where it wasn't happening quite at the same rate. Right.
Yeah.
But in this game, man, took advantage of his targets. That play was incredible. I honestly thought Lamar was throwing the ball away until they panned down the field and it was a touchdown. But that's the Ravens offense for you, right? Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention here is, I think we kind of talked about this, but of course, Judon gets his second sack before the half. And I called that one just to tap myself on the shoulder there.
You did. You said 2 sacks, right?
2 sacks. Yeah. My offensive player didn't quite get there. Gus didn't flirt with 100, but he did have the most carries, which once again, we were happy to see.
And he played well. He had some big runs.
Yeah. But the one thing I want to spend some time on here, Glenn, is the interception by Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his first interception. That seemed to be the headline of, in the game. The commentators were talking about the fact that was the first interception. Seemed like it was off. But let's focus on the receiver there. What did you see from Boykin during that play? And was it more of a bad throw by Lamar, or was it a bad play by Boykin?
Well, I'll say, just to give Lamar a little bit of blame, I thought he may have thrown it a split second early. Now, he had some pass rush in his face, so part of that was needed, but maybe just a hair later. But I mean, to be honest with you, Boykin looked like you just mentioned with Andrews that you have to run every route like you fully anticipate the ball coming your way. You just have to. And as a receiver, I understand that it's frustrating, especially in our offense. There's going to be a lot of times you're going to have to run that route at 100%, and that ball's not coming your way. But guess what? The next time you got to line up, you got to do it again. You got to do it every single play. When you run your route and you make your cut, you do your break, you got to get your head around and look for the freaking ball and get ready to compete for that ball. And to me, I didn't see that from Boykin. I saw a guy who did not expect the ball to be coming his way. He didn't get his head around. He didn't compete for the ball. It was horrible, in my opinion. I mean, everyone who was watching the game at my house, immediate reaction was, what is Boykin doing? Get your head around, explode out of that cut. And, I mean, he should have undercut that defender and had his body between himself and the ball. I mean, between the ball and the defender. There should have been no reason that ball gets to the defender and gets intercepted, because Boykin should have been stepping right in between the two as the ball was getting there. It was, to me, a disappointing play by Boykin. He clearly did not expect Lamar to throw him the ball, and he wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, no, that was a lackluster effort, and I agree with you there, where you have to be convinced that you have to convince the defenders that you're going to get the ball every single play. I mean, that's part of being a receiver, and yeah, that can be easier said than done. Like you said, it can be difficult.
Frustrating, but they're pros.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, they were talking about it. If you look at Willie Snead, his last healthy full season in New Orleans had 62 catches. Yesterday had 2 targets, 2 catches, 20 yards. No complaining. Does his job.
No complaining, blocking, right? Running routes.
And he makes crucial catches. He's always running his routes at 100%, blocking hard. And so, yeah, I don't know. Boykin to me has shown progression, but then you see a play like that and you're like, what is this seemed like something that would happen in preseason when you're working out the kinks, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not in the 4th week of the NFL.
And I don't want to hear that they didn't have a preseason. This is game 4.
Right, exactly. So, you were a quarter of the way through the season. And yeah, we got a lot to improve on. So, all right, well, I'm glad that we agree there that it wasn't all Lamar. Not that we're absolving Lamar or anything like that, but I think Boykin definitely had a lot to do with that. All right, so we talked about Andrews, of course, got 2 touchdowns. Another beautiful ball by Lamar. If I'm not mistaken, that one was a little bit sidearmy, a little bit to it. I love seeing his
into a little window, a little pocket in the zone.
I love it, man.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's so awesome. It's funny because I feel like I envision Lamar Jackson growing up and playing Ultimate Frisbee, and like that being inspired from Ultimate Frisbee, because that's how it kind of is when you play Ultimate, right? But
I've never played that, but I've seen it on ESPN once or twice.
But you're always throwing in those lanes, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
Anyway, it just makes me think of that every time. It kind of makes me chuckle. But the other thing I want to talk about is Ferguson. That's right. Jalen Ferguson showed up. He is on the Ravens. He made an appearance, had a huge sack.
Yeah.
For a loss of 18 yards on Haskins in a big moment. I mean, he capped off that, he put him in an impossible situation. And so that was a huge play. Are we expecting more? What do you think he's turning a page? What did that give you?
Nothing. I mean, it's nice. I'm not mad about it, but it's not like he did anything that, blew my doors off and makes me think he's going to start stacking games. It was nice to see, but it was no indication that we're going to see a ton more of it. Unfortunately, that's just my view of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to point out maybe Calais Campbell. Another big time pass deflection in a big moment. I mean, the guy just seems to make them. And every time he bats down a ball, I look behind him, and 5 yards down is a guy who's wide open, would have caught a first down, but he couldn't because he batted it down. So, and it's so funny to me because when you watch him run, he does look relatively upright, but he's such an athlete at his size. It's so crazy to me. Man, it's a shame we're not catching him in his prime. It would have been nice if he was a Raven for much
Mm.
longer, rather than catching him when he's 34 years old. But still, fantastic athlete, and yeah, another impressive play. And then also, Patrick Queen had nine tackles, 3 assisted tackles. He had 3 tackles for a loss. I just wanted to highlight those because there was a couple really nice plays where he came darting in and shut down the run
Oh man,
in
that
pretty
goal
big
line
moments.
play.
Yeah, pretty
He
big
just pushed
moments.
him.
Yeah, I mean they kind of they
Yeah,
met
he's
at the
like,
peak, and one was left standing, and that was Patrick Queen. So I thought he had a fantastic game, and yeah, so I just wanted to shout him out.
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to mention about Calais on that play, it was incredible because it wasn't a dink pass, like, over the line. That ball had some heat on it. It was funny. He made me think of when a guy spikes it in volleyball, and then you're the first contact on the other side, and you got to get real low to get under it because he's so tall. When he hit that out of the air, he fell over because you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a dink pass. Like,
No.
that's why it made me think of volleyball a little bit. But yeah, what an athlete. Really happy he's on our team. That might be the pickup of our year. But the other thing too, this game obviously ended 31-17. RG came in wanting to show out a little bit. I think he told coach, hey, if we get up, can I get in this game, please? Like, this is, we're talking about the Deadskins here. I mean, we're talking about the
former
Washington
team,
right? And they cut him.
Yeah.
Obviously they gave up on him. So, but unfortunately, he did throw an interception.
That was a bad throw.
But he got
good.
some air under it.
And that's kind of surprising because RG3 does throw a pretty ball.
Yeah.
But that was
Hollywood
not one
had
of
the
them.
guy beat.
Yeah, that was not one of his pretty, and the Fender, he's the same guy who picked Lamar off, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, he got two picks in that game. Big game for him, but luckily that pick came at a time where it was obviously inconsequential. But then right after that, Terry McLaurin, man, they brought Khalil Dorsey up right before this game, and man, they saw him, didn't they? How did I keep saying this? This is one thing I want to point out to kind of surprised me, I guess I'd say. I'm not here to bag on Anthony Averett because I think he competes. I think he plays hard. He is what he is. He's not a number 1 corner. He's not a number 2 corner, but I think he could be a pretty solid number 3. But how did I keep seeing McLaurin matched up with Averett, and then I saw him right here in this case with Khalil Dorsey?
Yeah.
How does that happen when you have that many good corners? I know that Tavon's out, but we still got some pretty good ones left. They have one clear guy who is way better than everyone else. Inman's okay, but Scary Terry's a heck of a player. How does Humphrey and Peters not on him every single play?
I can't even remember were Humphrey and Peters in at all in that play. Like, I feel like it was just so
maybe at the end, but they were certainly in there on the
right when Averett
was getting cooked by him.
Yeah, I was confused by that as well. I don't know what the answer is there, but yeah, it is confusing, right? Where, we play a lot of man, so you match up our talent against your talent and see what happens. Kid's a heck of a receiver, though. I can tell you that,
Beast, man. He came in hurt, man.
She's a whiz. Yeah. So, but I do have a couple questions here to end this. Where are you at in your confidence level in the Ravens? I'm gonna ask a specific question in the Ravens' ability to beat a team like Kansas City or the Steelers. Not that they're in the same level, but these upper echelon teams that are rated higher than us in the power rankings as it stands. Like, after that game, did this game do anything for you to move the needle and instill confidence in you as far as the Ravens' ability to beat those higher end teams according to the power rankings?
Well, I'll tell you this. What it did do is it showed me what that game last week I think could have done is it could have done one of 2 things. It could have motivated the team, let them know, like, look, this is what you have to work on. It points out some pretty bad, some areas where they were pretty bad and they need to improve. And it could kind of boost them into the rest of the season and kind of motivate them in a way where they get pushed to another level of a team where they may not have reached had they had more success in that Kansas City game. Or it could destroy their confidence. It could make it look like, well, doesn't matter what we really do here because we're going to have to run into that giant in the playoffs. And do we have any confidence we can get it done once we do so? So to me, what this win showed is that they got back to work. They went back into the castle. They did some tough film study over that Kansas City game. Learned some things about themselves. Maybe had some tough conversations in that film room with one another. But what I think it did was it brought him out hungry. It brought him out, wanting to show something, wanting to prove something. And to me, I think the key is that we don't know. We have not even seen close to the peak of this team yet. Where last year, I almost wonder if we peaked early last season, and maybe we weren't playing our best when we needed to the most at the end of the season. We can still do that here in this season as the Ravens. They can still peak when it matters most at the end of the season, rather than in some point in the regular season, which I think they did last year. So to me, I'm in that sense, I'm encouraged because I think they know they have a long way to go to get to where they want to get. But the good news is they're winning along the way. Outside that Chiefs game, yeah, this game may not have been as impressive as some were thinking. They may not have blown the doors off of them, but they're getting better. And hopefully they peak at the perfect time rather than too early.
Yeah, it's a great point. Hopefully they keep improving and things of that nature. The other thing I want to address is we talked about in the pregame, this running back by committee, and we kind of touched on it, but I just want to spend a couple minutes here. We saw the proportions were as follows: 9, 8, 5, as far as carries to running backs, not including Lamar, 9 to Gus, 8 to Ingram, and then 5 to JK. So my question is, and I'm going to answer and then let you kick it over here. My question is, did you like the change? Do you think there needs to be a little bit more? I liked the proportionately. I like the change. I think that, once again, Gus is a great running back for our system, right? Not saying that he's the most talented. I'm not crazy. I'm not, ignorant to the fact that JK is incredibly talented. Mark is incredibly talented as well. However, I will say that, those runs that Mark puts on that are, 5 to 7 yards are so consistent. I would like to see those a little bit more. He seems to do it the most. We saw a lot last year. We saw a couple times yesterday, early in the game, specifically with Mark. But I do like that we see Gus earlier. However, I do think that if we are going to have success, it's going to be a little bit more concentrated to one guy. I don't know how I feel about like the value we gain in deception and what we lose in momentum with one guy carrying the ball more based on the types of backs we have. So I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that Gus isn't in this weird role where, for whatever reason that we can't figure out, he just doesn't seem to be getting the respect from the coaching staff and doesn't get the carries early on. And it seems like they only go to him out of some sort of desperation or
right.
I like to see that he was obviously a focal point during the week. Like, we're going to get this guy carries early on, and they did so. Because I think you're right, and I agree with you. I think definitely this season, maybe not last year, but Mark might not be the same runner as he was last year. It might be hard to believe or hard to think, as a fan, you go, how can a guy be that much different 1 year? It's just 1 year, but he did have the injury. He's getting older. He's in a position where older guys typically don't perform well. And Gus, young, he's bigger, he's stronger. I don't know about Mark's a pretty strong guy, but he's definitely bigger. Gus is a big, strong guy. And I think that this fit wise, him and Lamar, that combination of them two, man, it's just tiresome having to tackle Gus. And I don't care what anyone says. You look at Derrick Henry and his numbers first half versus second half, hitting a big body over and over again matters. Derrick Henry was so good in the second half. Put up his first half numbers last year and then pull up his second half. It's a tale of two backs. So it wears you down. There's something to it. Not to say that Ingram doesn't run physical. He does. But it's just something about Gus. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's but just like when a heavyweight fighter leans on you the whole fight, you just get tired. You get tired. So I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, I mean
you're good.
That's exactly what it is. So I'd be interested to see how we continue to improve that, and I hope we can continue to do so. But overall, I mean, I'm taking the W in the NFL anytime.
Heck yeah.
Right? I'm not complaining about
last time they came to Baltimore when we were supposed to beat the crap out, and they beat us.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we beat them was Joe Flacco's rookie year. How life comes at you fast.
Yeah, so
now
I mean,
Joe's
it's still a good win.
In for the
By the
Jets.
way, if he would have stayed in that ball game, that Jets game, Jets win that game.
Hey, I
bet them players were secretively happy to see him coming in, and they were bummed to see him go out.
As a Ravens fan, I'm riding with Joe over Sam Darnold. Right. I just am.
You haven't been a Sam Darnold guy from day one, so.
No.
Yeah.
So let us know what you guys think on that game. Give us your opinion. What do you think about the idea of what they did was bringing Gus in early? Are there other questions that still stand out? How are we going to stop the screen game? Things like that. Let us know what your thoughts are. go ahead and subscribe and turn those notifications on so you stay up to date. And then check out the Patreon if you'd like to be, if you'd like to interact with the show more. Other things I want to mention is I think we're going to do a couple things coming up. We're going to do an episode where our patrons have submitted questions to us, and we're going to focus on those questions now that we're a quarter way through the season. We're going to roll that in with our quarter season review, give some grades out.
Mhm.
And then of course we'll be doing our league-wide headlines in this coming season and things of that nature. So make sure to turn those notifications on, stay up to date, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.